everybody, welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. My name is Pagan, and today I'm joined by a familiar voice that you have heard on the show before, and that is Astrea Taylor. Astrea was here, oh gosh, when was it? Like 4 or 5 months ago, but she was here for her Greek gods book, which the full name is totally escapes me because I actually don't have it in front of me. But if you go back and look for the Greek gods episode, that is where you will find Astrea's first episode. But she is here for a brand new book that was so good that honestly, I would have to say this is probably my top Llewellyn read of 2023. And that is Inspiring Creativity Through Magic. So, Astrea, welcome back to the show.
Oh my gosh, what a compliment. Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here again.
Yes, your book was so fantastic. Honestly, I texted a friend of mine in the middle of reading the book, and I was like, I swear to God, she wrote this book directly to me. Because it was like all the stuff I had been needing to hear about, like creativity and making sure that you're taking care of yourself and being balanced and all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, she's calling me
Mhm.
out even in the book. Come on now.
With kindness, with
With kindness.
compassion.
Yes, it was all good stuff, and it was just so perfect the way you wrote it. Um,
Thank you.
so anybody who's listening, if you're a creative, you are gonna want to go pick up a copy of this book. It's fantastic. It is so good. It walks you through the entire creative process. And I would also say, because, y'all know I have two podcasts, I have the fiction podcast as well. So I would say that if you're somebody who is not a pagan and you're wanting a book that kind of helps guide you through the creative process, this is also a book for you. Even if you're not pagan, like you don't have to do the pagan stuff. You can, do it however you like. But there's so much valuable information in it that it was just like, oh my gosh, this book was like the best thing to come out of probably like the last 4 years. It was just so good.
Well, thank you. I really feel like it was divinely inspired. I just I felt like I had to write it. Like there was pressure on me.
I
So
think that
I
it's
said
true.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such a great book. And I love the way that, like, it was funny when I started reading, I was like, he's talking about this little writing spirit. I have a writing spirit. Is that a common thing? Do people have writing spirits? It's not just me.
Oh, yeah, and, talk about people who aren't pagan or witchy or anything like that, who work with this creative spirit. I mean, look at The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Look
Hmm.
at Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. These are people who do not identify as pagan or witchy or magical even. Probably, I mean, the latter may be up for discussion, but I'm not aware of that. And I really try to find instances where they identified with that. But those people and Stephen King
Hmm.
and like Tori Amos, these people all work with creative spirits and they give them the energy, the inspiration, the ideas, the knowledge, little hints and things like that. And it really helps. And I found that it just is amazing to get that kind of insight and assistance in my creative works.
So I have to ask because Elizabeth Gilbert is like one of my favorite authors, and
I
like
love
just
her too.
seeing her like pop up in the book was just like, oh my gosh, really? I didn't know she had this
Yes.
process. How did you find out all that information? Like, is it? I don't know if you could Google that, to be honest.
Yeah, well, she wrote a book called Big Magic, and it is about the creation process. And she mentions the creative spirit probably about, just there's a couple of pages. It's not a lot. It's more about practical advice.
Hmm.
But she did have a few beautiful quotes that I had to use, and I just love that. She also had a podcast afterward about Big Magic, and even the title, Big Magic, she knows that there's something otherworldly happening going on.
I think to write books, actually, I think just to create art in general, you have to be kind of almost in tune with something other than yourself. Because I paint and I write and I do all the things. I mean, I do all the arts outside of dance. I can't do dance anymore. The MS doesn't really let me do that. But beyond that, I think that just kind of being in touch with all of those things. And it's so interesting how you touched on the different mediums and how those creative spirits actually vary from medium to medium and how they influence you. And it was just, oh, it was so good. Exquisite. Like chef's kiss exquisite.
Yeah, well, and I have a background in a lot of different arts. I was
Mm-hmm.
an actress for a while, just in like high school plays and stuff, but I took it very seriously. And then I was a fiction writer, nonfiction writer, fire dancer. I did pottery for a while. I used to love to sing. It was really interesting how much background I had, like this jack of all trades, just enough to know things to be a little bit artsy and dangerous with them. And some of them weren't enough developed enough to actually, move forward past, a pleasure hobby or something. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like having those insights helped allow me to touch upon how those kinds of artists might create and how they might benefit from the way that I kind of set up the book with, the creative spirit, and then, going through the elements and having your creative correspondences, because I use those in all of those arts.
Mm-hmm. And I think having all the different aspects of it, and it was really interesting reading it because I do majority of the things you talk about in the book, but I had never kind of put like, I guess you could say like a name to it, like touching with the elements and doing all those things because, like I make my cup of coffee and, obviously feed my coffee spirit in
Mhm.
my kitchen, who gets very
Mhm.
angry if I don't make coffee every morning. But, I make the cup of coffee, I come and I sit at the desk, I light the candle. I don't do incense
Mhm.
anymore, but I have a diffuser for essential oils and those kinds of things. And,
Mhm.
doing all of these different little tidbits I'm just like, well, I had no idea that all of this was like practically a witchy kind of experience. This was just what made me comfortable. And it's so funny because talking about those writing spirits, um, I actually called forth a writing spirit several years ago. It's a writing spirit slash productivity spirit. And
Ooh.
I had just basically this like $6 or $7 little like skeleton raven from like Walmart during Halloween season. And I was like, you
Mhm.
can inhabit this body and live on my desk. I will create a little nest for you and everything. Just be
Wow.
here and kind of, show up. And every now and then like it will like fall over if I'm not being productive, or like the head will kind of turn a little bit and I'm like, okay, I see you. I see that I'm not doing what
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be doing. And so it's really interesting how that happens. And I do know that if I'm not feeding that spirit enough, which I affectionately call Edgar,
I love it.
and
Yes.
I don't feel it as much, and it's just it kind of goes back to being that
Mhm.
little figurine instead of being the full-fledged spirit. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting how you touched on all those little pieces about feeding it, and also feeding your egregore of your books, and or not so much your books, I should say, just your art. And it's like, yes, I see this, I see all the different things and how they kind of come about, especially with fiction writing. And just so good. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. I can't even like praise this book enough because when I got done I was like, I have to go back through this book and read it again, which I have read it twice since I got it.
That is
And
awesome.
I've gone through and like made like the notebooks and done all the things for all the different projects and all the stuff you're supposed to do with it. And it's just an absolute best book that I could the best book I could recommend to creatives right now. In fact, I actually put a post about it just yesterday in one of the romance writing book discords that I'm in, and was like, hey, I know many of you are probably not pagan, so take that with a grain of salt, but go buy this book. I think you're gonna get a lot out of it, trust me. So we'll see
Well,
how that
thank
comes out.
you. Yeah. And I think a romance egregore, oh my goodness, that has
Yeah.
got to be steamy. I would love to hear more about that. Like if anyone comes up with a tale to tell.
Oh, I have plenty because I write romance.
Okay, yeah. Well, I
So
mean, it sounds fascinating.
the funny thing about it is one of the egregores that really kind of came out was a story that I wrote in my book, which actually is getting a complete revamp right now. But the book is currently available. If you want to wait a few months, there's going to be a brand new edition out. But anywho,
Oh yeah.
so the story is called The Tenant, and it is about an incubus who lives in a house, or well, he lives in the void that is connected to a house. And so this woman moves in, and her realtor is like, hey, you need to go and like basically say hi to him, otherwise he's going to make himself known in probably a really scary fashion. And so she's just like, what? And the realtor leaves before he can even answer any questions because he's like, nope, I'm out. Goodbye. I'm done. I sold the house. I'm out. And so
Wow.
she goes and introduces herself and ends up in this very fantastical kind of landscape that, well, I guess it's almost like a hellscape, that has all these different doors. And she meets him. His name is Lucian. And when I finished the story and I was editing it, Lucian was like in my like almost peripheral, being like, yes, write this, write that, that
Mhm.
needs more
Wow.
spice, do this. And
Mhm.
it was just kind of those perfection kind of things. And he had one of those energies about him that you're just like, sir, can you tone that down, please? I'm trying to write here.
Nice.
But yeah, he's super awesome. I and it's funny because when you're a fiction writer and you talk about those kind of egregores and those beings that, sit down and they basically take your story in a whole new direction that you didn't anticipate
Mhm.
in your outline.
Mhm.
And it's funny when I talk to other fiction writers about that, and I'm just like, the first time I told somebody that that happened to me, I thought it was nuts. And they're like, no, it happens to all of us. All of
Yeah.
us.
And it's a fascinating thing. The work is like, "No, this is who I am." I just
Yes.
love that.
Yes. And it's
Yeah.
so crazy how that actually happens and to have everything perfectly outlined and you're going through your draft and one of my fantasy novels I had a character who's named Kovan and he was supposed to just be a 2-bit character and he was basically in like 2 chapters and then he dies in book 2. 2 chapters book 1, dies book 2, beginning of it. Uh chapter like 6 or 7 he decides that he's going to sit down and I'm like I had to stop writing and I'm having this conversation in my head with this character going, "What are you doing? You're not in this scene. Get out. You're supposed to keep walking. You left at the
Mm.
end of last chapter. What are you doing?" And he's like, "Nope, just write what I say." And I'm like, "Okay, I guess I'm gonna write
Wow.
what you say." And he ends up becoming this great supporting character that also is a secondary love interest for the main character. And
Mhm.
I'm like, this is so much better than my outline.
Yeah. And those they supply those twists and turns and those, like, very characteristic sayings and actions, and
Mm-hmm.
they just show you who they are, and you just kind of take note. You're like, "Okay." I love that. I love it when that happens, when it just takes over. Because 'cause I'm a pantser when I write
Mm-hmm.
fiction. I just write by the seat of my pants. I'm like, "I have this beautiful idea. I kinda know how I want it to end, but I don't know how we're gonna get there." And then I go back and, like, outline everything and make sure I have all you know, the things
Mm-hmm.
in the places, but yeah, I was always so surprised when just writing by the seat of my pants, and it was like a roller coaster. I was on a roller coaster just writing at my desk on a laptop. Like what's happening? What's gonna happen next? And it was always so thrilling because it was kinda like I was tuning into a television show, but it was
Yes.
my work that I was creating as it poured out of me, and I was more like watching it happen than I was an active participant. Of course, it was me doing the typing and choosing some of the words and noticing things and choosing how to, space all that out. But something otherworldly was definitely at play.
And it's funny that you kind of describe that because it's exactly how my books play out in my head. I see the whole thing playing out like a movie or a show or whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to like obviously get every little detail in there the way that you see it. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But um my husband and a writing professor from when I was in college also told me that sometimes when you write books, the characters that come to life are spirits of otherworldly things. Sometimes they're
Mhm.
human spirits, sometimes they're fae, sometimes they're something else that are coming through and they're telling you their story. And that
Mhm.
you're getting to see it all and you're getting to experience it through, their words and you write it down and it's like, thanks for telling me my story. And then they never come back ever again because you wrote the story and it's like, huh, interesting. All right. And it's true. Like some of the stories I've written that I'm like, I wrote them out and I have never heard from the character since.
Wow.
So
Well, and
that's
yeah,
just a really fantastic way to think about it.
the character may not come back. I feel like the character lives on in other people's worlds and
Yes.
minds, as they read them. So I mean that character had work to do somewhere else probably, I'm guessing.
Hmm.
But yeah, you keep that creative spirit. Well, in my writing experience doing fiction and nonfiction, I kept the same creative spirit to help me create those works of art, that had those spirits, those egregores. And then yeah, releasing those to the world was just a fantastic way to just put things out there and like that story wanted to be told. Like I wrote
Hmm.
this one story. It was a Beauty and the Beast variation, and it was about a demon who lived in hell, and she had to work off some karma that she incurred from so her life and her life choices and things like that. And so it's really weird. I feel like, it was around the same time where The Beauty and the Beast was being remade with Emma Watson,
Hmm.
and I was really mad about something about the Stockholm Syndrome, even though I love the story as a child, and I still generally love it. I didn't think that was the right story to tell at that time in the political landscape and stuff, like, "Oh, you should just love this monstrous person who, you should look the best in people." It was also like, I just felt like we need a rebellion. We need someone to lead the charge against that kind of thinking and just more common sense as well.
Hmm. And now, which book is your Beauty and the Beast? It's the Dame one, if I remember correctly. I don't
Yeah,
have it.
it's Belle Dame sans merci. It was inspired by a John Keats poem and a painting, about this beautiful fairy child woman pulling this knight off of his horse and just, bewitching him. Um, and it's a wild romp of a story, but I really loved it so much, and writing it just poured out of me so easily. And those are the experiences when we talk about the creative spirit and the egregore working with us in our art. It's that's what I think everybody wants to get toward. And I did have to put in a lot of hours to get there. I had
Hmm.
to get into that mindset. I had to get into the right atmosphere for my own creation process. And that's where I think the creative correspondences can help. And, there's the elemental aspects of those. But then, there's like what temperature, what season, what kind of lighting is going on, what kind of like sounds or what atmosphere do you have? And I think thinking about all of those things and just using whatever worked helped me finish my first book ever. It was the book before that one, but it just started me on this roll and I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. It's so pleasurable too to just have those feelings of being swept away
Hmm.
creatively.
I think that that is super awesome, and I think I love that you kind of mentioned like the different temperatures and the seasons and all this stuff, because that brings so much more richness to the story than just being like, hey, they did this thing. And that wasn't
Mhm.
something that I even really focused on in my own books until recently, because it was one of those things they never taught that in school. So
Oh
like
yeah.
when I was getting my creative writing degree, they're just like, make sure you get the dialogue and you get all this, and you're
Mhm.
doing all this other stuff, and it's like, okay, cool. And then you learn from other authors and you learn from other creators, and it's like, oh, but there's so much more richness that I could add to this story that, makes it so much better by adding those
Yeah.
little things like, what season is it? What does it feel like? And just
Mhm.
showing that, and it really immerses the reader even more, which is so cool. Um,
And I think the setting is a character too,
mhm,
it's
yeah.
it's like the context, I guess, or in a way.
It's almost like giving it like that living and breathing world to be in.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
that that's just, oh, so good. So, so good. Kind of bringing it back around to your book, one of my favorite
Mhm.
things that I actually really started to implement in my own schedule was your days of the week for inspiration, and
Yeah.
how I'm changing how I do like content creation and all of this other stuff. And it was funny because I had some of them kind of set up on those days, but I thought it was really interesting how bringing all that about, and, kind of finding the best way to, figure out what day works best for what you're trying to create. And so, do you follow this schedule, or do you follow something different and interesting? Like, what does the a week look like in Astrea's life?
Yeah, well, every week I do meet with my best friend. We both have small businesses, and on Wednesdays we talk about our business goals and whatnot. Like I'm like, I have to write this article, and she's like, I have to sell 10 essential oils to this one place, So I do use the days of the week. That's Mercury's day. He rules over
Hmm.
the markets and commerce, things like that. And then for the other days of the week, I always write a to-do list every day, and I always use the planetary day of the week or a deity. Sometimes they'll throw a deity up there. And it really inspires me to see that there is more potential in the day.
Hmm.
It's not just a mundane Monday. This is Moon Day. And on Moon Day, I want to take care of myself most of the time. I want to make sure I have like a nice, dreamy day. I'm not too hard on myself. I want to relax. I want to lean into my emotions and read books in bed, things like that. And then Tuesday, I do feel like the Mars energy of that. I do feel like after a day of rest, I'm like, okay, let's go get something. Let's go do something. Let's get some things done, run some errands, talk to some people, whatever needs to get done. Like that's kind of been on my to-do list for a while. And so forth with the rest of the week. It's enhancing the way that I do things and the flavor that I have when I do them.
I think that that is super cool, and it really does bring about so many different opportunities to kind of like make your week a little more magical, in addition to a little bit more, oh, what's the word? I guess you could say focused in its own way, but it makes it
Mhm.
different and unique because it allows you to tackle different opportunities with a little bit more of that divine kind of almost intervention in its way, but not intervention's almost not the right word. But I thought that it was such a really cool experience to kind of look into. And I was like, yeah, we're going to change the schedule around and we're going to make
Oh
everything work
yeah.
the way that this works. And I think it's just a really cool opportunity. So if that's something that you feel, those who are listening, if you feel like your schedule's not really working, check out Astrea's stuff on that. And if you buy the physical copy of the book, it is on page 58. So, um, definitely check that out. I have no idea what page it's on in the digital because I don't have a digital one. So, um, and also talking about the other versions of your book, the audiobook was just so pleasant to listen to.
Oh
Um,
good.
I
I haven't heard
sometimes
it
when I
yet.
read books, my ADHD brain doesn't want to sit down and actually read the book sometimes. And
Yeah,
that
I
happens a
feel
lot with
that.
nonfiction. So if there's an audiobook, I'll listen to the audiobook while I'm reading along. And it was such a pleasant listen. Just wonderfully comfortable. Was the narrator was just so great. And I don't know if you had any say in that, but it was just great choice.
I didn't, and I'm happy to hear that it's good because I haven't heard it yet. I've heard like them do the prologue or the forward by
Hmm.
Michael Herkes, which is beautiful. And I love him. But I haven't heard all of it, so I will look for that. But the only thing that I tell my publisher is I don't want a robot to do it. Please just make it a real person. Like we cannot let the robots take over everything. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's a lot of AI going on, and there's a lot of AI authors as well. And it's a little bit frightening to me because I think the human voice is more characteristic. And I talked to somebody who was like, "Oh yeah, this AI led me down this weird rabbit hole of conspiracy theories," and I was like, "We do not need more conspiracy theories.
No.
Like,
No, we don't.
back it up." And just the human mind, the human heart. I don't think they could ever be really replicated. And I know, like you and I, can't be replicated. So I always advocate for human stuff, even though there are some beautiful stuff, beautiful works of art. It's not really completely the same. It's we have to kind of view it with the lens of like, yes, this is they had a little bit of help doing this.
And I know there's a place in the world for AI. I know there is,
Hmm.
but right now I
Yeah.
feel like AI is moving so fast. And it feels like it literally just came out of the woodwork just a few months ago. And I know it hasn't come out of the woodwork for those listening. I am aware of that, but it feels like it really just kind of emerged greatly out of the last couple of months. And so it's just something that feels like it's going so fast, and to the point that they're like, we don't know if we can stop it now. And it's like, okay, maybe we should have toned it back before releasing that, but whatever. That's just my opinion. But I'm like you. I don't want to listen to an AI voice read me a
Yeah.
book. I don't want to read an AI author's book. And
Yes.
I understand AI bots and doing like short little snippet stories. Those are fine.
Sure. That's
But
great.
I don't want to read an entire book that is written by AI. I want that human interaction. I want that human connection to that book. The equivalency of those blood, sweat, and tears that come into that book. Because I don't think AI will ever give us the human emotion and magnitude that a
Hmm.
human can. And, going back to those creative spirits, AI can't really connect to that. And so you don't get, if there is a spirit that is telling you to write this story because they need their story heard, AI is never going to be able to accomplish that. That
Yeah.
has to be
It
done with human connection.
Yeah, AI does not connect to that spirit, in my opinion, because it's an organic
Yes.
connection. Yes.
Yes. I agree with that. But yes, the narrator who did your audiobook was very warm, very at one point in time when I was listening to it, it was later in the day, I actually surprisingly fell asleep, but remember everything the narrator said. Like her voice
Wow.
was so comforting that I'm just like, I drifted off to sleep and I woke up like half an hour later and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I miss? And I went and I flipped back through the book and I'm like, oh, I didn't miss any. I remember all of this. Okay. Which never happened. So I don't know how that
Wow.
happened. But the
Yeah.
narrator was just a very well done version of the book. So I highly recommend it if you're somebody who listens to audiobooks. It is on Audible. I don't know if it's on Spotify or any of that. I don't follow that. I just do Audible. So I would assume it's also on iTunes. But again, I don't
Mhm.
do iTunes, so I don't know. Um, but if you are an audiobook listener and you have Audible, check it out. There will be a link in the show description to it as well. Um, so kind of segueing a little bit off of your book, what is next in store for you? Do you got classes? Do you got workshops? Do you got events coming up? What's on your
Yeah.
schedule and your horizon?
I have a lot of beautiful events coming up. I'm doing the Columbus Witches Ball in November.
Oh, that sounds
And
divine.
yeah, in Ohio, I should say. There are a lot of cities called Columbus. And I believe I'm doing Earth Warrior Festival in Ohio and the Witches Gathering online. I'm going to do a little bit of creative art class kind of thing about that. And I'm throwing around the idea of like a companion class to this book, Inspiring Creativity Through Magic.
Oh, that
But
would be neat.
yeah, I think I might like think about that for this fall. So we'll see about that. But you can find out where I'm going to be, sign up for my newsletter if you're interested, get a signed book on my website, astreataylor.com.
Perfect. That was actually my next question of where people can find you. Now, are you I know you're on Instagram. Are you on TikTok?
No, I'm not. Like,
Okay.
well, okay, I have an account saved just so nobody tries to copycat me, like that's a weird phenomena. But um yeah, I'm on Threads. I have a day job and I with my obsession of writing, I don't have a lot of free time. And so when I do, I like to enjoy watching rather than like making content most of the time.
Mhm.
So that's what I enjoy TikTok for.
I feel that I'm a very bad poster on TikTok. I'm trying to be better because I know it helps a lot with the shows. But I'm much more of a watcher than I am a poster.
Mhm.
I enjoy
Mhm.
other people's content, commenting and kind of hyping them up and supporting them that way. But as far as me posting, I do like the very bare minimum because I
Yeah.
don't I don't know how to do the TikTok content very well. I
Yeah.
barely got like Twitter mastered like right before the whole like Elon fiasco, and then
Oh
I'm now
gosh, yeah.
starting to get a hold on, kind of Instagram and how that works, and it's like, oh, well, that's not a great place anymore. And now there's a new one called Threads, and I'm like, no,
Mhm.
I'm done. I will just stick with my other one. I feel like a old person that's just like, I can't keep up with the trends anymore. Can we just not change? social media every like 6 months, please.
Right. And I think back to, like, MySpace. I had a
Oh, I
MySpace
had a
account.
my I loved MySpace.
I did too. You know, I had this account where, like, it would play a song when
Hmm.
it came up onto my profile.
I did too. I had so much cool stuff on there, which was so awesome. And it was
Mhm.
great. I miss MySpace. If honestly, if MySpace came back, that'd probably be the only one that I'd relearn.
I think it might be still a thing,
I
but I
think it
don't
is,
know.
but I don't think it's as good as it was when, we were younger. So,
Yeah. Yeah, but, the evolution with the time, I think the best way to keep up with people nowadays is just an email list and go to their website and things like that, because you never know what, social medias are gonna change, and a lot of these
mhm,
people who invested a lot in Twitter were really, bitter about the whole change, and so, they didn't have a way to kind of talk with the same people again because they were boycotting it, right, I understand why.
mhm.
But yeah, email lists I think are just, the way to go to keep in touch with people and, that's how you learn about sales and events and good things like that from your favorite authors.
The other thing too is a lot of your favorite authors. I don't know if you in particular have one of these, but Discord servers are really great for kind of keeping up with people, and also a really great way to kind of connect with the other readers of the books too. Um, which I know a lot of people because they don't know again which social media one outside of like TikTok and maybe Instagram to use. So they've a lot of authors have started creating Discord servers, which I thought was kind of
Hmm.
cool. So
Yeah, that is really cool. I'm on a couple of them. They're really easy to get along with, but
yeah.
yeah, social media dilemma.
Social
How much
media is one of those things that it's necessary, but it's also a evil tool.
Yeah, I think that we have goals where like this is my intention of putting out, the best intentions, but at the same time, and then I just get so many marketing ads too.
Oh
And I'm
gosh,
like, well,
yes.
like
Yes.
every other post is a marketing ad, so
Mhm.
it's not attractive in that way.
It definitely is not. So, everybody check out Astrea's website. It will be in the show description. It I will also tag you on Instagram when the episode goes live. And this has been so much fun. I always love chatting with you. It's so nice and so chill and so wonderful. And you're just such a wonderful spirit to have on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel the same way. I love your show too. Thank you so much.
You are very, very welcome. So, everybody who's listening, thank you so much for being here today. Check out Astrea's book. Again, it will be in the show links. Get yourself a copy. Go create some beautiful art, whatever that medium may be for you. And if you're not an artist, but you'd like to try, check out Astrea's book because she has all the great stuff to tell you how to get started. And everyone, stay safe, take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.